Hello, everyone. How y'all doing this evening? Hope you can all hear me. As you might have already seen, we have giveaways for this evening. So this is very cool. I am now being sponsored by Trollord Games, and I'm actually kind of expecting incoming soon. So uh, great to see everyone here so early. This is freaking awesome. I'm happy to see you all. And I may actually have myself set up. Hold on a second. You know what I need to do? I need to get the giveaway actually going. Hold on. Let's see. Enter. All right, the giveaway should be live. Welcome, Raiders. It is great to see everyone. I know I was just hanging out with y'all in the Troll Lord Games channel. Thank you so much for the raid. 51 people coming over. That is fantastic. So what are we talking about? Well, let me introduce myself first for those of you who do not know who I am. I am Rob, otherwise known as Phantom NJ, pretty much in all the Discords. You can also find me sort of on Twitter at PhantomNJ_D&D. I'm also on Blue Sky at PhantomNJ and Mastodon at, I think it's just PhantomNJ at this point. I am on the Dice.camp server, but I'll be honest with you, I have not had a lot of fun with socials. It's been a lot better not, yeah, eat to surf. You know, there are times when I have to remind myself that not everyone knows who I am. So let me take a look and make sure that the bot is doing what it's supposed to be doing and taking entries. Come on, bot. Huh. Oh, yeah. All right, so dear. So I'm trying to figure out why Stream Elements is not being nice to me, or Nightbot is not being nice to me. It should be nice to me. You know, I don't really ask it for much, just to kind of work, but we'll see what happens. It may just be a delay. I'll figure out in a bit to find out whether or not it's actually picking up. Thank you all for the incoming follows. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you all. So today, what I want to talk about today is character death. This is actually a topic that was suggested by one of my Discord members. For those of you who are not in my Discord, feel free to join the fun. We have, some fun topics talking about various gaming. We do talk a lot of Castles and Crusades, mostly because of the fact that on Friday nights we have Friday Night Crusades, which has now moved to my Discord. We're in a little bit of a transition period as we are going to be getting a new castle keeper. We may have somebody handle stuff in the interim. Our current castle keeper, Sigland, has gotten a new job, which is a fantastic thing for him. I'm really happy for him. Unfortunately, it is going to make running the game on a weekly basis not really viable for him. So, we may do some stuff in the meantime, some one-shots or whatever. I think we have somebody who's interested in running. I want to make sure we confirm that. But, join the Discord, join the chat. We can talk about running other games on other nights. I'm more than happy to host as many games as people want to play. I honestly don't care what edition. I don't care if play Castle and Crusades, play Amazing Adventures. Amazing Adventures is a fantastic game. I am waiting. I'm trying to be patient for the new printing to come because they are bringing it more in line with CNC. It's going to be basically CNC, with a more modern look at it. You can play any genre you want, noir, whatever. Fourth edition. Listen, Eat to Surf. I will be perfectly honest with you. If people played 4E, I might actually sit in on a session or two. I played 4E for a while when I came back to regular playing. This was circa 2012 or so, 2012, 2013. That's, it happened to be what my friends were playing, and it's a different experience. It's different from 3E, which was different from 2E, which really wasn't quite as different from 1E. It's like basically you had 1E, you had 2E, which was more like an evolution, and 3E just kind of went on its own. It's very, I really thought that was a different thing altogether myself from what I've seen of it now. But listen, whatever rule set you want to play, I don't care. I'm not here to yuck someone else's yum. I mean, it's like if you enjoy the elements of 4E, go for it. There's some great concepts in 4E which I honestly wish they had kept in 5E. I kind of feel like they threw out the baby with the bathwater. A little bit of a knee jerk. Yeah, I understand some of it was because of the design elements, but there are some things that they just should have kept and they did not. But that's a topic for another day. That's an interesting thing. So let's talk about character death. I had something happen a few weeks back that I haven't had happen in a long time. I had a character that I was playing in a campaign. I specify campaign because I've had characters die in one-shots. There are times when you kind of expect characters to die in one-shots. If you're playing, say, a tournament-style adventure, you know that this is a serious possibility. If you're playing a short-form adventure, sometimes a character death is a hell of a thing to do, just because if you're doing like a short, and maybe not necessarily D&D, but something where you can make it an epic scene, a character death can actually really enhance the overall feel of the sessions. But I had a character die, and this was in a Pathfinder 2 game. And it brought up some feelings, and it made me rethink about some of the things. I am an old school player. I mean, I started off the first thing I ever learned. I was like 8 or 9 years old when I first learned to play D&D, and that was with AD&D First Edition. I played AD&D First Edition really from 1980, 81 or so, right up until Second Edition came out. And then we went to Second Edition and played Second Edition through we were playing regularly through 1993. Then it became sporadic as me and my college friends went our separate ways. Troller Games, the 3 gift subs, thank you so much. That is really, really awesome. I really appreciate that. And that's a hell of a grouping to give them to. I mean, could not have planned that any better. So, I've had characters die. I was used to the idea that characters could die because, First and Second Edition, character death was right around the corner. It didn't take a hell of a lot. There were a lot of, you had different types of traps which were instant death. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Eat to Surf, because here's the weird thing. I've never ever said no to the idea of, characters. If somebody really wanted to have their character resurrected, I might make them work for it a bit, or basically make it, kind of a, you need payment after the fact, which requires, a number of, basically paying off the debt. I would never say no. Interestingly enough, I don't know that I've ever had any of my players ask to have their characters. Maybe not since I was a kid. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think back then maybe we had a couple of people want to go for the resurrection and stuff. But I can only remember one other character in any of the games that I've run come back to life, and that was something that I did for them. It wasn't something that they asked for. It made for a really, really, really good story, and so I kind of went with it, and we had a lot of fun. But I've never asked for it. So fast forward, and again, I still even I mean I've been DMing 4E, 5E, and I mean Castles and Crusades goes back a little bit more to the old school sensibilities, but I've never been, I was never opposed to resurrecting a character, and I've had a number of CNC characters and player characters die in campaigns that I've run. I think I've had at least four at this point, but two that I can name off at the top of my head, and I know there's a couple more that are missing. So, but again, never asked. And the weird thing was, and here's where things got strange, in that my character died in a Pathfinder 2e game. And, it's one of those interesting things where I was normally of the persuasion of letting my character, not having zero backstory, but more to the idea of I'll have, bits and pieces, and then I'll flesh it out as I go along, get thing for the character. This is a character that I actually had a relatively extensive backstory for it. But because of the fact that the character died so early on, nothing got touched. I never really got to explore any of it. And it was like, that kind of hurt. It was more, if it had been something that happened along the way, I don't think it would have bothered me so much. But at the same time, weirdly enough, it never occurred to me to ask if resurrecting the character was a thing. I rolled up another character. I don't know what that says about me. It's the feeling bad about your character dying but never even thinking. Yeah. The whole playing a piece instead of playing a character. So that's a good question, Ty. And it is good to see you, sir. Um, is the question whether a character should be prevented from dying, or is that GM should not go? Well, first of all, GM should never go. Oh wait, or is it that GM should not go out of the way to kill? First of all, GMs should never go out of the way to kill a character. I mean, unless there is an agreed upon story point, where the character, maybe the player is no longer enjoying the character and wants to switch characters, or the player has to leave, which is something that happened in a game that I was running. The player, unfortunately, she had to leave the game for due to life reasons, and they made the decision that the thing that worked best for her was her character dying. Which honestly, I'm not sure if it was harder on her or on the rest of the party. But it was what it was. It made for a hell of a story. The scene where the character died was really rough. But the aftermath was amazing. It made the actual campaign that much more intense, because now we weren't just trying to complete our tasks. We were out for revenge. And it became interesting in the idea that we got to a point where all of our characters just decided, we were going to do this or we were going to die. And if we died, great. We're going to die doing what we set out to do. But we're not afraid, and we're putting it on the line. And if we're going to go out, we're going to go out epically, and we almost did. But it made for a fantastic ending to the campaign. Now, Whether characters should be prevented from dying. Here's where things get tense. So for me, I'm going to be honest. I do not fudge dice. I just don't. I don't believe in fudging dice, and there's a reason for that. The second I start fudging dice, especially to keep a character from dying, then I become directly responsible for every character death. Because I've decided that a certain character is not going to die at this point. A certain character can die at this point. And then I need to be able to justify to myself that I was right to save said character here, but not this character there. And I don't want to be making that choice. Now, there are ways to work around the fudging of dice. And you know something? Here's the thing. You talk about rolling for divine intervention. I don't necessarily roll for divine intervention, but if it can be made a strong enough case, and like say you have a character who has a real strong relationship with their god or goddess, and they they basically have been doing all the right things. It isn't that they just suddenly, because they're a cleric of whatever god, suddenly shout out for divine intervention roll. No, that's not interesting to me. It needs to be a really well thought out, well played, call for help. And at that point, I might consider it. It's a well that I don't want to go to too often. Again, because of the same reason, because then I'm deciding that this character is going to die, this character is not going to die. But, there are things where if there's a good chance that a character is going to die in the next thing, that's why how many hit points an enemy has, the player's never going to know. I don't like one of the issues I have with VTTs is the fact that while you're hiding the hit points, you're not hiding whether or not an attack killed the enemy. So you have to decide at some point maybe to go and switch it. But I like having I like using a VTT for say placement so people can get a better visualization of where everything is. But I want to make sure that, if there's an epic moment where a character could kill a monster or kill a mob, and the likelihood of them, especially if there was a likelihood of them dying the next time they got hit, yeah, you know something? I'm probably going to let them kill that monster, assuming that they hit, of course. They still got to make their successful attack. So there are ways to work around that. I mean, there are things of using the morale of the mobs to cut a combat short, especially if they take out the leader. There are things that you can do, but otherwise, I'm going to let the rolls fall where they may, because otherwise, why are we using dice? It's part randomization. Is a thing. There never when you say there never has to be a character death, I'd argue that once you start combat, that is the stakes. Now, here's the thing: what you can do is in the case of a potential TPK. You could rule that, if there was a TPK, normally, unless the players made very, very bad decisions, I take that as being my mistake. A TPK means one of two things, one of three things, really. Either A, the players made really bad decision. B, the dice, just extremely went against them in a way that was worse than normal. Or three, I designed an encounter that just really honestly was broken. And I know there's the idea that when I say broken, I mean there's the idea that there's some encounters that some combats that players should just not enter into. However, when I say encounter is broken, it was one that I thought they should be able to handle that I just grossly misjudged. And you know something? That is still not working with the drawing. Hold on a second. Why does that not want to work? Can someone try entering drawing again? I tried to reset the thing for the giveaway. I'm not sure what's going on with it right now, but it's being kind of annoying. Nightbot just does not seem to want to work. Let me see. Huh. It does say case insensitive, and it does not seem to like it at all, and I don't know why. You know something? Let me try this. Because I want to make sure that I do. I can actually just do it on, do a random thing afterward at the end, but I like the idea of users being able to actually enter into it. Let's see, $10 F. One ticket per user. And all right, do me a favor. Try entering ticket. There we go. And I'll stop the other thing from running. There we go. All right, cool. Yeah, we're going to start doing that because Nightbot decided that it doesn't like me today and I have had enough of its foolishness. So let me stop that timer. Or, well, something I can put it. I can just change the reading of it to, what did I say, ticket? There we go. Yeah, I have no idea what was up with Nightbot. It was just being dumb. Actually, I should probably check. Oh, Nightbot says it's running, so I don't know what that's all about. But I am showing people in the giveaway, so that's great. So far, I've got 3 in the giveaway. All right. So let's see. Where were we? All right. So Ty, any character that has died in my GMing has been due to unlucky dice or really poor player decisions. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's funny. It's one of the things that I didn't like about. I don't like about 5e. There are things don't get me wrong. There are things I do like about 5e. But one of the things I didn't like as a DM was balancing encounters. It got to the point where, you would think so. Each surf, really, it's not. I've managed to do it. I've managed to do it a couple on more than one occasion. Let me tell you, it's a little trickier. But the thing is with 5e, it's a different mindset. So in 5e, they lean further into the idea, and this is something that I find it's a problem I end up finding with sometimes with old school DMs looking at 5e and not understand, trying to apply old school concepts to the way 5e works, because 5e goes whole hog on the idea that hit points are not physical damage. They're not a sign of how much physical damage you've taken. And when you think about it that way, where it's not, every hit isn't basically something's getting sliced into. It's, yeah, but you know something? 1E may talk about it being that way. 5E mechanically works that way, which is where the difference lays. Because in 5E, that's why short rests and long rests are a thing. Because at 5e, when you're at like 5 or 6 hit points, you're exhausted. You are physically spent. You've had your armor clanged into. You've basically been just dodging for your life. And so it's the kind of thing where you are basically at the end, and you're at that point where that hit is going to find, that final hit is going to find a spot where it physically does it. So, when you're talking about 5e, that's why short rest works, because you can take an hour and you can get back some of that energy that you take an hour, you basically catch your breath and you get some of that energy. You don't get it all back, but 5e overnight, you've got a full night's rest. I'm still a little leery on it being 100% hit points back, but it gets to the point where, well, okay, where do you draw the line? And you might want to adjust that or whatever. But that's the whole idea with 5e, and when you look at it that way, the whole 5e thing makes a hell of a lot more sense. Death saves. The problem, honestly, the biggest problem with death saves, in my opinion, is the fact that there are too many classes that have healing. If there weren't quite as many, death saves wouldn't be as much of a problem. Because, unless you're a DM who went on 0 hit points, you're dead, as opposed to -10, negative something, basically bleeding out, then, death saves really honestly are not much different than how long does it take for a character to die after they've fallen. Yeah, I get that. Well, there's where, that's the problem I run into, Ty, with 5. Oh, the other problem, one of the problems I've run into 5e is there are so many combinations where between when you have classes and then the way the subclasses work, and there's so many subclasses, and they're so, unlike like Pathfinder 2e where you're slowly building your character and the things that you can do that differentiate themselves from other characters. 5e, you basically get a full blown set of abilities that kind of mimics other classes, and it's just basically, all right, what's the more dominant side of the side of the class? I'm kind of going off on a 5e rant that I didn't intend on to go on, but it is what it is. Yeah, but my bigger problem was, especially once I got to higher levels, it became damn near impossible to apply any kind of balancing. I always felt that every encounter I created, and I've been creating encounters for D&D for 40 years. So it's not like I was new to the idea of DMing and creating encounters, but for the first time, I was honestly perplexed on how to create an encounter that didn't either feel A, way too easy, or B, I was going to wipe the floor with the party. It literally felt like there was no in between. I never got a good comfort level for creating an encounter that had a good balance or understanding. This is an easier fight, but there's some danger to it, versus this is a tougher fight. They should be able to get through it, but it's a bit of, they need to play well and such. It got to the point where there were only 4 players in the group. I had an NPC with them for a while, so that they would have a rogue with them, or somebody with rogue abilities with them. I took away the 5th character. Hey Jay, good to see you, sir. Um, but it got to the point where I didn't know. I was afraid that I was just going to wipe out the party in any given encounter. And the funny thing was, they were really, tactically speaking, they were really good at what they did. There were two spellcasters in the group. One was a wizard, one was a sorcerer, and they made so many encounters simplified. And it got to the point where I almost felt like the other thing that a DM should never do is actively be scheming against their, in the general sense, scheming against the players and what their characters can do. I believe in creating encounters that are challenging, but if I have to sit there and figure out how I'm going to literally negate how these characters are doing, Jay, they are not. As a matter of fact, I only think one of the three games have any badges. I know Curtis and Brett are playing in, I believe, I'm not sure which of the games. They're playing in one of my three games. Sure, and each surf, that's exactly how I like to do it. Hey, Mike, good to see you, sir. I like having. Um, I believe five. I believe 5 of 6 are open. I think there's only one slot that is yet to open for when Silver opens this weekend. I appreciate that. I appreciate that greatly. Yeah, I should mention, for those of you who are not already aware, I will be at GaryCon. I will be there at Founders and Legends and GaryCon. There are so many people in the community going this year. It's going to be an amazing, amazing time. I can't wait. We have less than a month to go. As a matter of fact, 3 weeks from tomorrow, I will be getting on a plane to head to Lake Geneva. And that just boggles my mind, and I am so excited. I can't wait. Each surf someday. Listen, if there's ever a convention to go to where you will know people, this is the one. I think I have like 50 to 60 people that I know that are going to be there. I went to. I was like, I'm glad I'm going to be there for both Founders and Legends, because I'm going to need to use Founders and Legends to spend some time with the people. Spend some time with people, because when I get down to the GaryCon section. Jay, you're probably right, because I've got the Greyhawk community, plus I've got the TLG community. So there's so many people in there that I know that are going to be there. I keep hearing about more each day. It's going to be so cool. I'm running 3 Castle and Crusades games at GaryCon, and going to be a lot of fun. I'm also planning. I need to sign up for one of the CNC Open games. Nice. I did not get to sign up for any of your Founders and Legends games. I was on vacation, and I heard about how quickly they sold out. And even if I could have been on, but honestly, the internet connection there was so bad that there was no way. I mean, it was slow enough that there was no way I was going to be able to get into those games. But what the heck? 30 seconds. Yeah. If I was home, I could have done it. If I was home, I've got a gigabit connection here, fiber connection here. That I could have pulled that off. There was no way it was happening while I was down in the islands. I am flying to Chicago. Flying into Chicago. For me, it's about a 2-hour flight, maybe an hour and 40 minutes. I'm going to take my time arriving on the Friday before Founders and Legends. It does. It's actually, for me, it's a 13-hour. For me, it's a 13-hour drive to GaryCon. If it was a 10-hour drive to GaryCon, I would honestly think about doing the drive. But it's a driving from the airport is really, really easy. I've done it a few times now. It doesn't even bother me. And I decided the nice thing about it being a 2-hour, an hour and 40 minute flight was upgrading to first class was cheap. So I'm going in comfort, flying there both ways. Plus the fact that it makes both of my checked bags free. They're included. So that right there takes, almost half of the upgrade price. $31. All right. But yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I can't wait for GaryCon and Founders and Legends. I'm so looking forward to that. Back to character death. So, we were talking about how difficult it can be for like 5e, and yeah, I mean it requires a different way of looking at it. Okay, 31 hours, not including sleep. Yeah. Oh no, don't worry about it, Jay. Hey, listen, your presence is always appreciated, sir. I will. We will be seeing you in a little bit when you go live. What time? What time do you think you're going live? About 7:30. All right, cool. So we talked about the differences in different editions and such for. Okay. When they get tired of hearing me talk, we'll read into you. Man, I do have a giveaway going. Please type, I believe it's raffle in the it's a $10 giveaway for Trollord Games PDFs. Is it ticket? Might be ticket. All right, yeah. Ignore me. Hashtag ticket. It's my first time using the actual Stream Elements giveaway, so I'm still getting it. So, character death and avoiding it at low levels. My philosophy has always been that 0 to 2 levels should be apprenticed to a character of level 4 or higher. I am with you there. Whatever. Yep. Nope. I agree on that. So that's an interesting thought. How do you handle that at the start of a campaign, Chris? I guess that's my question. Do you have them all wandering around with 1/4 level character? That's an NPC? Or I'm because I like the thought in a way. It's kind of interesting. For me, for low levels. Okay. All right. That's an interesting thought. For me, the way I look at it is at low levels. Low levels is where I am not looking for balanced encounters. Honestly, I'm looking to give them encounters that the characters, I'm not saying that they're going to be simple, but I'm normally looking at encounters that the characters, unless everything goes really horribly, terribly wrong, should be able to handle. Patrick, Canadian Shin Gamer, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you for coming in. We're talking about character death. Because one, I want them, especially since I tend to have a lot of players who are new to Castles and Crusades, and I understand how tenuous in this particular game life can be. I want them to be able to get a feel for their character. I want them to be able to get into the headspace and understand what their character is bringing to the table, understanding how their character plays. So it's the kind of thing where at like first level, especially at first level, I don't know that I really want to put them in a position where they're likely to die. Take that as you will. I mean, they're not going to be first level for very long. That's part of it. But, give them a little time to get into their character, get invested in their character. At and there in and you kind of just touched on one of the struggles with low level characters is that finding enemies that are interesting at low levels that are not going to be too much an issue for the characters is problematic at best, because you kind of run into these, the same thing over and over. I try to switch it up. Hey, Wilson, good to see you. Sometimes I like doing things for like kobolds are cool. Goblins. Throw in maybe kobolds or goblins that are being led by a single or one or two orcs, or maybe if you're more of the lizard type kobold, maybe a couple of lizard folk. Something a little higher and possibly a bit more dangerous that almost acts as like the first big bad that they're coming across. And yeah, it's a good point. Kobolds, you can adjust the numbers. Same thing with goblins. You can adjust the numbers to make them tougher. The one thing I don't like, and this goes to the problem, I don't like throwing lots of mobs just to make an encounter tougher. I loathe large groupings of monsters just for the sake of lengthening a combat. If it fits into the story, great. But I've played as a player in a number of adventures where, for the love of God, I don't want, if I'm looking at 25 enemy tokens on a map, I'm going to go scream. Eat to Surf, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for the great discussion. And listen, I'm glad you were able to join us for a bit. So whatever you've got going on, have a great evening. I will mentally check out of a game if for no other reason, for no real reason, the DM just plumps down a boatload of mobs, because that gets monotonous, especially when you're at lower levels and you don't really have any good AoE capabilities. And yeah, it's true. There are times when you need to learn to run away. Now, throwing lots of mobs on a screen in order to convince the characters to run away, that's a different thing. Unfortunately, some of the times that I've had it happen, the characters were literally expected to fight the mobs. It wasn't. It's like there wasn't a choice, because if you didn't, we knew that the story was not going to advance. And I will name one of the early encounters in Storm King's Thunder was like that. It sucked the life out of us almost immediately. I do have a giveaway going on. !ticket to enter. It is a $10 giveaway for a Troller Games PDF. So far, I've got a bunch of people, and I don't want to call out lurkers, because I appreciate lurks, and that's not why don't want to do it. But right now, there's only 3 entrants, so your chances are good. From a DM standpoint, now, when a character dies, and here's the thing. That and listen, Wilson, you got exactly fight, flee / sneak around, or try to role play around it. And role play around it usually works better if it happens before the combat. One thing that I think DMs, if you're looking to avoid unnecessary character deaths, is you need to reward players who find ways to avoid combat. Unless the monster, unless whatever is in front of them really, really needs to be killed as part of the story for some strange reason. and usually that means it's honestly the big bad itself. If your players can avoid combat and find a way around it, whether negotiations, bribes, whatever, and it fulfills the idea that whatever it is they're fighting is not a threat, and it takes the out of it, you need to make sure that you're rewarding those players. I treat an encounter where the players avoided it by some means that fit well within the story as with the same XP values as if they had killed the monster, killed the mobs. Because if you don't, then they're going to feel like they have two choices: fight or flee. And fleeing is going to be morale. Fleeing is going to be morale killing. Fighting and dying is going to be morale killing. This is true, and that's that. There goes the whole idea that that goes back to the idea of making sure that as a DM, when you're running a game, setting those expectations. This is the kind of thing that you talk about in session 0, where you make sure, and you have to reiterate every once in a while that let them know that role playing your way out of an encounter is all maybe an option if they want to try it. But make sure that they understand that however they get, the idea should be they need to get past the encounter, not that it's kill or nothing. Now, I guess the question becomes next is, well, you've been running a game, and for whatever reason, a character died. And there are, at this point, you have different options. Like I said, for some strange reason, I don't know if it's because people knowing that I've been doing this for a long time assume that I wouldn't be open to character resurrection. Let me get back to you because I want to get a little more clarification on that, but I don't want to. I don't want to ignore the question. But before I lose my train of thought, because squirrel. I had a character in actually the Friday night game we had died. Honestly, it came down to a number of things. It came down to a matter of poor decisions, poor timing, and I tried to give the character a couple of opportunities to roll their way out of the poor decision that they had made, and their dice just completely failed them. And it got to a point where I had to just let the character go because it was getting silly. I mean, it had a number of chances to escape, find their way back, and I was like, I'm sorry, yeah, and it happened to be that the rest of the party, including the healers, got feared away at the same time, so there was no one there to save them. But that's a story for another day. But it's one of those things where it's like, all right, the character died. The player already had like the entire family of characters, brothers and sisters of that character, ready to go in order as each one of them died. I don't know what exactly that says about the characters or the player, but hey, they had a theme, they were running with it, never asked. The question is, if a player is really attached to a character and wants to bring it back, how difficult do you make it? We're playing a game, especially like in D&D or adjacent, where resurrections are a thing, revivals are a thing. And if they had, if one of them was high enough level with something like a revivify spell, bring them back to life. Not even a question asked. But then there's questions like, all right, well, resurrection. A full resurrection was always an expensive thing in old D&D. There was the question, not only how much it costs, what it would cost of the caster, what it would cost physically of the person being resurrected. So I'm always of the opinion that make it a choice, and it's something I need to remind myself later of. Well, what do you want to do? Because I honestly feel that in a way that I failed my players. Maybe it's because of the fact that we were all just having fun and everybody was just okay with creating a new character. That no one really expressed a desire to keep the current character. It just became okay, next one up. But I want to make sure that going forward that if they're really set on they really want to do more with the character, figure out ahead of time. Don't. It's one of those things where you should probably figure out ahead of time what the real cost is. I think like in first edition AD&D there was a point of constitution. I think there was a cost to whoever did the casting, and then there's the question of are they a member of a given are they a member of a given religion? Do they have what does religion say about it? What would it cost to have somebody else do it? And figure out that ahead of time so that if someone does do it, they can make an informed decision. Is this something that they want to do? The idea of characters being able to save up potentially for their own resurrections is good. Other characters, can I have your stereo? No, more like other characters. All right, he's dead. What has he got? No, let's bring him forward. And this way you're not like scrambling just as the characters died and things are kind of raw. Figuring out, well, how would this actually work, and does it work in the story, and make sure that those options are kind of laid out ahead of time. Just saying that there are particular options, and we can go, whether or not you want to go over all of them in advance. And it may be worth going over, as far as whether it's worth going over in advance, that's going to depend on how intricate it is. Because if it's something where it's going to cost X amount of gold and X amount of level in relationship to a certain deity, and the variation between the two, depending on what that relationship is, how much it's going to cost and such, or whether it's even possible. They may make different choices. So you want to give them an idea of what they would be getting into, because you would hope that adventurers, the idea is, generally speaking, an adventurer who, would rather not be permanently dead is going to have looked into this kind of thing. I like to give them that benefit of the doubt, whether or not it actually really tends to be true. Figure that out ahead of time so you're not guessing. But the more of the story is, death does not have to be a permanent condition. I think some of us, especially if the older school variety, are really, really used to it. Unless resurrections happen to have been a regular part of your campaigns in the past, which is entirely possible. It's always, it's been in existence from day one of D&D, as far as I know. At least AD&D first edition, it existed. But make sure those that cost or those requirements are brought up at least at the start. And if your players have a character that dies, check in with them. Check in, see what they want to do, and also you want to talk to the party as a whole, and probably doing it ahead of time to see whether or not, and before anyone dies, to see whether or not everyone's willing to go in on whatever might be required should a character die and need to be resurrected. Especially if you're going to do the idea that, well, the church will, whatever, the priests of whatever god or goddess will bring them back, but they're going to be basically needing to do work for that temple or church, whatever, for X amount of times in order to pay them back. Death can be a permanent condition for characters. It doesn't have to be. But really, have those discussions ahead of time. I guess that's really in summation. Now, Wilson, you mentioned making encounters have variable resolution. Can you give me an example with regards to variable resolution? By the way, again, I do have the giveaway for the $10 giveaway for Troller Games PDFs. I've got 3 entrants at the moment. Again, we've switched over from the Nightbot to Stream Elements because Nightbot wasn't working. So it is exclamation point ticket. If you're not sure whether you're in currently, let me know and I will tell you. Ty, that's awful. Oh my god. Uh, 3 sessions later, huh? All right, we're up to 4. Excellent. Um, yeah, I mean the kobolds have a purpose. So it's going well. Actually, it's going real well. We have I'm now being sponsored by Troller Games, which is really cool. We have a giveaway going on, which you just joined. Oh, absolutely. Listen, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it goes back to the idea that if there's, if there is something the players can do, the characters can do to avoid combat and basically do some kind of negotiation and such, and they're willing, great, fantastic. Um, Depending on who your players are and how old school they are, you might need the kobolds, or not the kobolds, the or well, kobolds, goblins, or whoever it is. May need to make may need to make the first move, because older school players are going to see goblins, and it's kind of see they're going to see red and just look for goblin death. Newer players used to newer editions, may not see goblins as necessarily needing to be killed right off the bat. So the idea that the goblins may be searching for something, things that you can do is basically start off with the goblins making potentially the goblins making you know, no movement, no threatening movements. They may be looked ready to defend themselves, but emphasize the idea that they don't seem all that interested in fighting. They keep eyes on the party, but don't make any threatening gestures. Um, one of them coming out with a piece of cloth on a stick because they've seen a white flag of peace somewhere, and they didn't know it needed to be white, so maybe it's a green piece of cloth on a stick. Add a little fun to it. Um, but yeah, I mean the idea that it can go a different way, because now once you do that, the other interesting thing that you have there is now you've got a group that they decided not to fight, potentially helped because they're obviously not the type that are just basically kill, ready to just kill everything that they see, and they're not necessarily a bloodthirsty group of goblins of such. Well, now you've got interesting story possibilities where you can go from there. And that's the cool thing about that kind of situation. Again, if the party decides that all goblins must die, well, unless you specify that goblins, unless there's a reason that's considered to be a problem in your game, and you make that clear that in this world it's understood that that's not the case, it is what it is. But sure, no, variable resolution, I mean, there are all kinds of ways you can go with it, sure. And again, make sure that if they do find an alternative that works within the story for not engaging in combat and just taking out, finding another way around to basically win the encounter, reward them. Make sure the characters are rewarded with XP and some treasure. It doesn't need to be a lot of treasure, but at least a little bit. Find a way to make that happen, and there you go. You're not wrong. 20 goblins. 20 goblins are very much in the Tolkien-esque mold. That's for sure. All right, so let's see. Gonna be last call for the giveaway. I've got 4 entries at the moment. Exclamation point ticket to enter. $10 giveaway for Trollord Games PDFs from the store. Pat, your character died on Tuesday night? Hey, join the club. Oh, right, you did. I got my new sorcerer. I'm going to have some fun with him. Though it may get a little rough doing his voice after a while. So again, exclamation point ticket, and I will be closing the raffle in, let's call it in 10 seconds. Listen, the dog dying was not my fault. Oh my goodness, that was I felt so bad. I was like, all right. But seriously, the dog dying was not my fault. All right, closing the giveaway. And drawing a winner. Antiquitous. There you go. Wow, it actually tells you what percentage chance you had. All right, excellent. Alex, I will whisper that to you. I'll whisper the code to you momentarily. So, thank you everyone for a great, for a great session. It was a lot of fun having this discussion. Thanks for the gift subs, for all the follows, for the hour full of conversation. It was nice to have a very, very active chat. We're going to be raiding into Lord Gazumba. It is my understanding that Lord Gazumba I believe he is off next week. So there's a possibility next week I might have a session on Wednesday and on Thursday. We'll have to see how that goes. But in the meantime, let me bring this over to the stream ending because I have it. I really should probably start using it. We are raiding into Lord Gazumba in 3, 2, 1. Get your emotes ready. See you on the flip side.